In this video, we're going to be taking a look at one of the cheapest mining server cases you can get on Amazon right now. This mining server case just came in, and it was $330. One of the purposes of doing this is getting all of my open air rigs converted to mining server cases for down in the garage. This will actually house all of my 2 gigabyte RX 560s, so won't consume much power at all. I think right now that rig, like on Vertcoin, only consumes 390 watts at the wall, running on a RevTech with 8 RX 560s. So I went ahead and picked this up along with a power supply. This one did not come with the power supply. However, any 2U power supply should work with it. And what we'll notice if we take a look, we've got tons of power ins and then some separated out power outs. And they did include all of these cables with the case. So these go the 6-pin out to 2 8-pins. And a couple of these are varying. I did see one that only had a 6 and an 8, but it looked like that was just one of them. But the rest of them had, I can't find it here, but the rest of them had 8-pin. So it's 6-pin to dual 8-pins on all but one of them. And then it also came with a simple 6-pin extension cable, I'm guessing for the very last card, to reach the power supply if the power supply didn't have varying length, which my power supply didn't have varying length. However, all of my cards get power from the board, so I'll only have to run the initial stream here. So it would be really basic there, so that's nice. Let's just take a sweep around here. CPU, once we boot it up, we'll verify what CPU it is. I'm expecting it to be like a Celeron G640, which I'm actually going to be upgrading this. I don't think really anybody upgrades these CPUs. However, I'm going to try it. I'm actually going to try to upgrade it to, if it is a socket 1155, I'm going to try to upgrade it to a i7 3370K, which is the top of the line CPU for that socket. So we'll see how that works out. And looking at the ports, probably can't see that too well, but one of the things I noticed, it has HDMI as well as VGA. My other server case only has VGA, so that's cool. It also has 2 USB 3.0 and then 2 more USB and the Ethernet. So let's get this thing hooked up, powered on, and check out the BIOS. Before we get it powered on, one of the things we need to do is actually plug in the power supply. So got this power supply. This also came from Amazon. It was $110 for the power supply. We've got our standard. One thing I should mention is that I am an apartment miner, and so I only have 110 volt circuits. So everything that I run, I try to do as low power as possible. Not necessarily from an efficiency standpoint, just because I don't have that much power available to me. So let's go ahead and get the power supply out, and we'll get it hooked up. All right, with evaluating the power, one of the things I wanted to point out is there's essentially 8 in and 8 out on here. So if you look real close, you'll see on here we've got right, they're labeled power 1, power 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the outputs are labeled power out. So you have to be very cautious with these. You don't want to plug up all of these. They didn't really put a spacing in here, but they did put out right here. So make sure you only do the ins. Right, and then the outs would be from this to the card if you want to go that route. Or you could just do direct from the power supply. So we're going to go ahead and get all of these inputs hooked up. Alright, we got it all hooked up. We got our power in. I didn't secure the power supply too much yet, mainly because I'm probably going to be taking this board out and upgrading the CPU. But as you can see, we've got our 8 pins here. We've got 2 extra cables, and that's because this has 10 connections. Board only takes 8, so let's go ahead and turn the power supply on. We don't have any drive in here. So there we are. We are in the BIOS. So let me hook up a keyboard and I'll set the recording device down and we will start going through all the settings. All right, we're back into the BIOS, and one of the beautiful things I'm seeing right off the bat is this has a G2030, which is an Ivy Bridge processor. And given the fact that we're wanting to upgrade this to a 3770K, which is also an Ivy Bridge, I'm feeling pretty good that we might not even have to worry about a BIOS update to get it to recognize the CPU. So I'm hoping that's the case. Here we can see the date clearly needs to be set. This did come with a CMOS battery in it. For those wondering, I know the Octaminers don't. But we do need to set the date, so we'll have to do that. Let's see here. So it's a AX-B75 is the BIOS, and it says the version's 0.05, which is interesting. But let's keep going through here and see if there's anything that stands out. It is a 2-core, 2-thread. The nice thing about upgrading from the RebTech to this is this has mSATA, and so I'm going to be able to swap my mSATA direct off of the RebTech, and I also have an 8 gig stick of DDR3 SODIMM RAM in the RebTech. I'll be able to swap that into this system as well, so that'll be nice. Right now this has 4 gigs, so I'll be able to upgrade that to 2 gigs. Let's just go through the subsystem settings real quick. Alright, we can see right off the bat 4G decoding is enabled, so that's good. Looks like everything is probably already set up like it needs to be. Let's jump over here to take a look at the power settings. Power loss state is power off. We want that to be power on. So you will want to change that. Let's go into the CPU configuration. And here we can see it is a G2030. This particular CPU has 3 megs of L3 cache. Which with the 3770K, if I'm able to get that to work, that'll bump me up to 8 megs of L3 cache, and that'll be a quad-core 8-thread CPU. Oops. Check out the SATA controller. So this looks like 4 SATA ports. I actually only see 1 on the board, plus we have the mSATA slot. So that's interesting that it's got 4 configured in the BIOS. My guess would just be that you could really just use the one on the board, the actual SATA slot on the board, or the mSATA. So that gives you 2 drives. Let's see, full SKU firmware, find there. And then here we can see there's 2 USB hubs. So we noticed earlier that we had a 3.0 port, and then also actually 2 3.0 ports, and what appeared to be 2 2.0 ports, or they were at least non-colored 3.0. Alright, so everything looks good there. Let's check out the chipset real quick. Alright, so you can adjust the settings on all 8 PCIe port slots, so that's good. Typically you won't have to change any of this stuff, but you are capable to do that. It's got Azalea support. Is the SA configuration. Graphics. Obviously, we're running on the integrated graphics right now because this CPU does support that. But you can come in and disable that if you wanted that disabled. Alright, and let's hop over to the boot options. And we don't have any drives plugged in right now, so that's probably why we're not seeing anything here. And that looks like it. So let's go ahead and save the changes since we did adjust the power setting. And let's just double check, make sure the power setting has gone into effect. Turn it off. Turn it back on. And system boots right up. Now, one thing you're going to notice that we did not see is I did not see any PWM control for the fans. However, when I was looking at the front of the case, there is a knob to adjust, which you have to do with the screwdriver. It looks like, but you can adjust the fan speed up and down. I'm actually going to grab a screwdriver real quick and let's see what that does. And upon further inspection, if we look down here, this is really odd to me, but if we look down at the fan controller, it requires a 6-pin connector. So, very odd, if you ask me. So let's go ahead and get that plugged up. And I'm actually going to use, I think, the power out. Let's see if they gave us a cable that we can use. If not, we'll just run power supply direct to it. So they didn't give us a specific power cable for it. So we just went ahead and ran one of our 6-pin connectors down to it. So now let's check. Here's the dial that you can adjust the speed. So let's go ahead and turn it all the way down, or what we would think would be all the way down, and boot it up, and let's see what these sound like. Okay, right now nothing's spinning. So let's go ahead and slowly turn this up. There we go. As you can see, they can definitely scream. And it's intake on the front, exhaust in the rear. And let's turn these up a little bit. That's full speed. Give you an idea of the decibels. Go ahead and turn that back down. So now I'm going to get this thing loaded up with my cards. I've got a couple days till the CPU comes in. So I'm going to go ahead and plug up all of my 560s, get the MSATA in, get the memory in, and I'll see you guys in HiveOS. Let's see what this thing looks like up and running. So now we've got all 8 of our MSI RX 560s installed. We're going to go ahead and boot this up and make sure everything is working. Don't be alarmed by that red light. That light is actually on my SATA drive I have, and it just means it has power. So here we can see it's booting up. And I don't have Ethernet plugged in right now, so it's not gonna start mining yet. But let's just make sure it detects all the cards. And I didn't do a fresh install or anything. I took the SATA direct out of the RevTech, plugged it in, and there we can see we've got all 8 RX 560s. And I actually have the Wi-Fi dongle plugged in, and Wi-Fi was configured on RevTech, it looks like. So it actually is mining. What are we mining right now? Haven. Looks like it's doing Haven. And here we can see the onboard graphics. It's actually registering as a Xeon E3 1200 graphics, so that's interesting to see. But all the cards so far are running cool. We're going to go ahead and let this sit. I'm going to capture the temperatures, and then I'm going to remove the shrouds, remove the fans, and see if we can maintain those same temperatures. I've been having some fan problems with these, with 1 or 2 of these cards, where it'll actually cut out and the card will stop mining. Even though it's not overheating, they need new fans. They're really old cards. These are from 2017. But if it's in a server case, I could probably just do a direct blow through the heatsink and probably be fine. So I'm gonna test and see what the difference between those are. So after doing some testing, I decided I'm just gonna go ahead and keep the fans on. It still performed pretty decent with the fans and the shrouds off. However, the temperatures were still a little bit higher than I could have gotten with the fans on. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave the fans on. And as you can tell, this fan here is pretty much about to go. So that is really my culprit for some high temps. So I'm going to have to get that one addressed. So I'll go ahead and order a new fan for those. I'm going to probably repaste all the cards, and then put the fans on auto, and then keep the fans on the mining server case at a decent control, and we'll go from there.